Hey, what's good on YouTube? Mike here from Team Your Y. So when it comes to Google Pixel phones, there's a lot of good stuff to say about these devices. They do come with great cameras, impressive software support. They're also pretty good value when it comes to the secondhand market. They tend to drop prices quicker compared to other Android smartphones. And if you're someone who's looking for a reliable Android phone without spending too much, I would usually recommend a Google Pixel smartphone. With that said though, as time goes by and we see more hardware advancements, especially with what the other smartphone brands are doing, you tend to see more flaws and weaknesses when it comes to the Pixel phones. With that in mind, if you're someone who's looking to get a cheap Google Pixel smartphone, then here are some Google Pixel phones that you might want to avoid buying in 2026. Now, as a disclaimer, I have covered these devices extensively in the past, and I do praise a lot of their features. With that said though, the reality is that over time they have had some issues, and I just want to highlight these in this particular video. Alright, so to start things off, you should probably completely avoid the Google Pixel 6a and the Pixel 7a. Now, the biggest reason why I would dissuade someone from getting these smartphones is because of the battery issues. Now, starting with the Pixel 6a, there were user reports of the Pixel 6a having bloated batteries and even some units that burst into flames. And Google did eventually respond to the issues, and it did roll out a software update which unfortunately heavily affected the overall battery life of the Pixel 6a. This led to some users complaining that their Pixel 6a was performing worse, their phones are getting less screen time, their batteries are draining faster, and a lot of Pixel 6a users were really disappointed with the battery software update that Google rolled out. Now, as for the Google Pixel 7a, this was somewhat similar, but this time around, instead of rolling out a simple software patch to nerf the battery, Google did issue a replacement program for affected units. Now, this worked by having users identify the IMEI number on their Pixel 7a. Google did offer the option of repairs and in some regions, financial compensation or credit towards a newer Pixel smartphone. Now, with all this in mind, if you're getting the Pixel 7a and the Pixel 6a, I do think it's a lot more hassle down the line, especially if you run the risk of having battery issues. Of course, we all want our purchases to be worthwhile and worth the investment. I would definitely go for something else, but yeah. Now up next, we do have two more phones, and while I wouldn't really completely avoid buying them, you should probably think twice before getting either of these. So I'm talking about the Google Pixel 6 and the Pixel 6 Pro. Now, these are great flagship phones. In particular, I have a soft spot for the Google Pixel 6. I've covered it a ton of times here on the channel, but the reality is these two phones are old now. Sure, you can get them for much cheaper these days on the secondhand market for a much lower price, but one big consideration with these smartphones is that software support ends this year. Now, these two were launched back in 2021, and Google does promise up to 5 years of major software updates and security upgrades for these two devices. So software support will end sometime this year in 2026. Again, if you're looking to get a smartphone, you're probably thinking of using it for many years afterwards, in which case you can still technically use these two devices, of course. The only downside is you're not getting the latest software features or security patches from Google, which is something to consider, especially if you're using banking apps with your phone. It should also be noted that some people have been having trouble with the Android 16 update on their devices. So some people have complained about boot loops and their Pixel 6 just dying on them after installing the Android 16 update. So yeah, these are some considerations to keep in mind if you're deciding on whether to get the Pixel 6 or the Pixel 6 Pro. Now, the last phone on this list, which you should probably think twice about as well, is the Google Pixel 10a. Now, unlike the other phones here, so far it doesn't seem to have the same battery issues with the other A series Pixels, and it does come with a lot of the latest software updates and features from Google. With that said, it is pretty expensive, especially considering that it's a lot similar to last year's Pixel 9a. Compared to the 9a, the only considerable upgrades with the Pixel 10a is the brighter display, the Gorilla Glass 7i screen, faster charging, and a new modem. With that being said though, if these are not a priority for you, then I would strongly suggest that you get the Pixel 9a instead. They both come with the same processor, they both come with the same battery capacity, the same screen size, they even come with the same design. So unless you really must have the latest Pixel A series model, I would just go for the Pixel 9a. It's going for a lot cheaper these days, maybe around 450 or 350 bucks. And yeah, they're so similar to each other that last year's model does make a lot more financial and practical sense overall. Now, if you own these smartphones and you've had no problems using them and they've served you well without any issues, then of course that's perfectly fine. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know what kind of phone you're using in the comments below. Are you still planning on getting these Pixel devices which we mentioned, or are you now thinking of switching to a different brand or different operating system for that matter? Sound off in the comments below. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.